Good morning, everyone. Welcome back from spring break. We're going to start our new unit. We finished Unit 10 before the break, and now we're starting Unit 11, which is on what we call Le Chatelier's equilibrium. And we're going to look at it through the context of ocean acidification. So let's go ahead and start our 11.0 notes, which are about ocean acidification. All right, so if you're watching this, you should have already answered the first question on your handout, which is asking you to reflect on what do you know or what do you think you know about ocean acidification, what it is or what it involves. Have you even heard this term before? And then you've watched the video, A Postcard from the Oregon Coast. If you haven't done that, please pause this video and go back and complete that before you carry on. All right, so in the video, they talked about shellfish. Now, I want to clarify shellfish is a general term that usually refers to the animal once we eat it. Now, this is a very broad category of animals, any animal with a shell or exoskeleton that lives in the water. These include lots of species, the ones you saw, which are oysters. Oysters are also joined by mussels, clams, and slugs in the mollusk family. There are shrimps, lobsters, and crabs, which are crustaceans. And then there's also the echinodermata or echinoderm family, which includes things like urchins, sea stars, and sand dollars. I hope you're familiar with a lot of these since we're all fortunate enough to live pretty close to the ocean. All right, so the video talked about seed. What is seed? Well, if we look at the life cycle of the oyster, our oysters are going to release egg and sperm to reproduce. And let's go ahead and get myself a little laser pointer here. So here's our adult oysters. They release egg and sperm, get a fertilized egg, and then that egg is going to grow over time until you get free-swimming larvae. These are the seeds that they talked about in the video. And then those larvae eventually attach their shell to some sort of surface as they grow over time into adults and start the cycle over again. So when the video talked about seed, this is what they were talking about, the development of those free-swimming larvae. Many times. All right, so in the video, you were asked to watch the postcard from the Oregon coast. Again, make sure you've done that. And so now let's talk about what you saw. So human activity releases carbon dioxide. And so we can see if we represent this in our figure, number one, there are the various things we do that release CO2 gas. Now that carbon dioxide is absorbed by the ocean. So about 25% of all the anthropogenic or human-made carbon dioxide is absorbed by our oceans. Of everything we make, 25% is being absorbed into the ocean. Now, if we want to represent that carbon dioxide, we have our gas and water, what the ocean is predominantly. That's going to change the chemistry of our ocean. So we're going to have a chemical change. Our carbon dioxide and our water react to form carbonic acid. We saw this in our acid-base unit. And then we also talked about our acid-base unit. The carbonic acid dissociates or splits into a hydrogen ion and a carbonate ion. And so in step 3, we see the chemistry of our ocean changing. So let's look at a specific example. When our ocean chemistry changes, what happens? Well, carbonate is used to build shells for shelled organisms. That carbonate becomes less available. Now it takes more energy for those organisms to make their shell, meaning that we have fewer and smaller shellfish. Some shellfish just don't have the energy and they'll die. The ones that do have that extra energy needed aren't going to be as big because they're not going to be able to build as much shell. It takes more energy to build a lesser amount. And here's the chemical reaction for that. We have calcium carbonate, which dissociates into calcium and carbonate ion. And so to take the calcium and the carbonate and make calcium carbonate, which is in their shells, that takes more energy to do. The activation energy is higher. Now, what do shellfish do? Well, shellfish filter water. If we have fewer shellfish, we're going to have cloudier water. Cloudier water doesn't let as much sunlight through. With less sunlight, our seagrasses aren't making as much product from photosynthesis. Now, seagrass beds are our habitat where young fish, so that's where our eggs are laid, and that's where the young fish kind of stay safe and mature into adult fish. So less seagrass, less fish. Fish is a huge economic system. Most humans survive off of fish. It makes up the diet of the majority of humans living in the world. So, this is going to impact humans who eat fish. This is going to impact humans who fish for a living. This is going to impact humans whose businesses rely on fishermen services. So, we could see an increase in cost of fish, which impacts everyone up the supply chain, all the way to the people then going to restaurants to eat fish, trying to buy fish to feed themselves. All right, so let's define some of the words that we heard today. So, ocean acidification, our formal definition. This is the change in the ocean chemistry due to an increase or due to increasing amounts of anthropogenic carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, anthropogenic is a word that we've used. It just means human created. So, anytime we say anthropogenic, we're just saying that that thing was made by humans. Or if it wasn't directly made by humans, that it came from the things that we as humans do. So if we talk about anthropogenic CO2, what are sources of carbon dioxide that come from humans? Well, all living organisms respire CO2. So we make CO2 when we breathe, but we also do things like drive our vehicles, which creates CO2. So that's an activity that produces carbon dioxide that's done by humans. All right, so I hope that that gave you some perspective on ocean acidification. And go ahead and finish up your 11.0 worksheet and have a wonderful Monday. All right.